From baggage claim to pajamas in 10 minutes. Erie International Airport. Fly with ERI.com.
Fly Erie International Airport to Charlotte on American Airlines, your nonstop gateway to the world. Also, we have Breeze Airways flying nonstop to Orlando and Tampa, Florida. A great low-cost carrier providing excellent service to the regional community. Fly Erie International for your travel needs.
Fly with ERI.com.
All year round, Frontier Home Products and Design has what you need to make your home comfortable and beautiful. Relax on a new timber tech deck designed by Frontier's experts. A new fireplace from Frontier Home Products Fireplace Gallery adds warmth and serenity to any home. Beauty and versatility at Frontier Home Products and Design Center, 4213 Peachtree, East 5th, next to the Bayfront Highway.
Frontier Home Products and Design Center. Discover a new frontier.
PA contractor number PA039007.
Welcome to TalkErie.com's Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast. Every day, we tackle the biggest issues that the Erie, PA region faces. Stay informed and involved as we advance the narrative of Erie. Now, here's Joel Natale.
We want to welcome back to the studio here. The senator from the 49th Senatorial District includes almost all of Erie County, Senator Dan Laughlin. Good to see you, sir.
Joel, it's great to be here as usual, and really looking forward to our 20 minutes.
We're going to do more than 20 today. All right. So the last time we had you here was for your 20-minute candidate profile. And going into that election, I'm sure you had a lot of learnings, right? So you talked to a lot of voters and things. Yeah. Tell us about how you felt like the campaign went and how it ended. And
look, it was. I would say it was what I would refer to as kind of a rough and tumble campaign. I think anybody that opened their mailbox and was looking at all the mail pieces and watching television, they know it was, it was pretty rough, and we got through it. And I'll throw this out here for our internet sleuths that feel like looking stuff up.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I got the most votes ever in the 49th district, though.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Just on sheer volume.
Sheer volume. Now, granted, it was pretty heavy turnout, but we hit roughly 71,500 votes, and I believe we looked back 15, 20 elections, and that's a high water mark.
What was the mail versus in person? Do you remember?
I didn't look at that.
Okay.
It was probably about 70-30, I'd say.
Because that made a difference on election night.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like the mail came in early.
Yeah, they got to work on that right at 7 a.m. So they had those results earlier than they had in the past, for sure.
So as you were going through the night, you were in a deficit.
Yeah, I have to say when the first results started rolling in around 8:30, I was like, well, maybe this is it, because it didn't look good.
And then the county in person came in, and that would be your area.
We really hit it hard in the county, for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, we prevailed.
But put your political hat on for a second. I'm trying to understand now. There's been you've been involved in two elections since we've had this show, and then the original election, what was that, 2017? 2016. And all three have been battles, but they're obviously they have, it seems to me like the Democrats have a target on your back. They feel like this 49th should be a winnable race for them. And they've poured the kitchen sink into it, and making you pour the kitchen sink in.
Yeah, for sure. Look, I don't blame them, right? This is a district that is Democrat majority by a pretty wide margin, actually. Now, granted, it has narrowed over the last few years with the registration shifts that have been kind of trending across the state. But it's still a plus 10,000 Democrat voter registration advantage, and with an advantage like that, when you look at it on paper, I can picture their strategists sitting around scratching their head, going, "Why can't we win that district back?"
Yeah, And before you was a Democrat, I'm trying to think. You beat Sean, right?
Yeah, I beat Sean Wiley in 2016.
Yeah. And then who did he beat? So, it was Jane Earls forever, right?
Yeah, it was after Jane Earl retired.
Yeah.
And then it was, pretty sure it was Janet Anderson and Sean Wiley in the general election. So
Okay.
it was an open seat at that time.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you think about it, it actually it has been preferred. The voters have preferred a Republican in there now for most of the recent future, right? I mean, recent past.
I mean, if you go back, I guess it's 20 years now, 25 years, something like that. The Republicans have held it more than the Democrats have, because Jane, I'm pretty sure Jane had it for 16 years, and then Sean had it for 4, and I've had it for 8. Well, going on 12 now.
12,
Yeah.
It takes a special kind of Republican to hold the seat, though. You're pretty
Sure.
down the middle.
Yeah, you have to be a moderate to hold this seat for sure, at least as a Republican. And quite frankly, I think you would have to be even as a Democrat, because Erie County is kind of your blue collar county, if you will. We certainly got a lot of national attention these last few cycles, that's for sure.
Where does the money come? Again, weren't you telling me it was like a $3 million plus between the two of you?
Well, I didn't study his campaign finance reports, but from what I understand, the Democrats spent roughly $3 million between.
They spent $3 million.
Yeah, and we spent, I want to say, 2.2, 2.3
for a state Senate race.
Yeah,
$5 million. It's like, but the money comes from
it comes
across
from
the country,
sources,
right?
and across the country, the Republican and Democrat state legislative committees, across the country, donate to different regions that are important. And look, we have the majority in the Republican Senate right now in Pennsylvania. That brings balance to the governor, and the state house is run by the Democrats now. And I would say, to most people that are listening, divided government brings some balance, regardless of which party you're for. If there's no balance, either party can kind of run themselves off to the one side or the other more than maybe they should.
Isn't it say something to the Erie County voter or the 49th district voter to say, this is how important the nation thinks that this district is, that they would pour this kind of investment? So you think about, you put that on a per vote basis, what, 135,000 votes, $5 million spent. I mean, that's a pretty big price tag per vote.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, think about. It's the same thing with the presidential race.
Yeah.
These Erie County voters are highly sought after.
Yeah. Well, look, one of the reasons my race was so expensive is because of the top of the ticket was spending so much money here. They ran the cost of all the advertising up, and going door to door, knocking on doors and talking to voters. Like, you wouldn't believe how many times that my team ran into people from like Massachusetts knocking doors for Kamala or for Trump.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so Erie County was quite the focal point for national politics, and it's fun to be in the spotlight sometimes.
Right,
I guess.
Right. Probably more so than, let's say, your colleague that's in the middle of the state or something where it's obviously super R.
If you know who's going to win, then no one spends any money there.
Yeah. Even Pittsburgh, they know.
Yeah,
it's going to be a hot D.
Yeah, so we helped out
district.
the local economy.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. You mentioned doing door knocking at things. What were the voters telling you?
It was kind of an odd year, and I have to say, I think it was because there was so much money spent here and so many phone calls made and whatnot.
Texts.
When you got to a door, you could tell pretty quickly if someone had already made up their mind. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was kind of straight party line stuff where I didn't see that the previous two elections.
Really?
Yeah, it was a little more stratified.
Were you a little nervous about that?
I mean, it's not a great trend,
Yeah.
right? You know, I have, in order to hold this seat, I have to have Democrats that vote for me, and obviously independents. And I obviously did well enough in there, but not as well as we did last time.
As far as margin goes.
Yeah.
Even though you had the most votes, but the turnout was so huge.
The margins were different. We won by 20 points 4 years ago, and we only won by 8 this time.
Okay. The what were the big issues? I mean, were you hearing about immigration on a state senate race?
Yeah,
you were.
Yeah, we were hearing about that. Obviously, abortion was a pretty hot topic, and I mean, I would say it was abortion, it was the economy, and it was our southern border and things of that nature. So we had to run almost a little bit more of a federal style
That's
race,
so
if you will.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What I mean, did you hear any attaboys for your work with the city school district, and are people aware of the CRIS? Some of the stuff we're going to talk about, right? I mean,
the CRIS is a little more of a in-depth type of topic.
It's kind of an inside baseball deal.
A little bit, especially since it hadn't really gotten off the ground yet, right?
Right.
Like maybe 4 years from now it'll be a big deal, but
sure.
it really played almost no role in this election. But the school, the City of Erie school funding, I would have thought would have played a bigger role this go around, but it didn't. It was more federal issues and more abortion oriented, and the City of Erie School District is now getting $83 million a year more in state funding than they did when I took office, and I mean that's not chump change.
No, it isn't. Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe we fixed the problem so well they weren't worried about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there was obviously a lot of ARP money and things that are involved. The how does the Senate work? Is about half the Senate elected?
Yeah, it's
so
half each.
So
cycle.
you're locked in on the presidential cycle.
I know
that's kind of a downside for you a little bit, isn't it?
Well, it's a double-edged sword. Right?
Yes.
I mean, Trump drives turnout, but in this district, you have to kind of walk a little bit of a fine line because there's so many people with a candidate like that that is kind of divisive too.
Yeah.
And so you try not to alienate your base without alienating the other folks that you need to vote for you. Right. So I always just focused on what I can do on the state level to make their lives better, and obviously that formula seems to work.
Talk about again, we'll get off of politics here in a second. We'll talk policy, but we had a huge U.S. Senate race between McCormick and Casey. Came down to the wire. Casey finally concedes a week or so later. How do you think that impacted your race, or just kind of the vibe of the election?
Well, I put a fair amount of effort into the McCormick race, and it's nothing against Casey, right?
Yeah,
I've met him. He's a nice enough guy. If he was your neighbor, you'd have a beer with him.
Sure,
right? He's not a hateful person. But it meant a lot to me to have a Republican Senate majority on the federal level. I feel like we can do good things for this country with that. And it was interesting to me because Dave McCormick's campaign team sent him up to Erie a year ago to talk to Dan Laughlin.
Wow.
Just to kind of get the lay of the land because, I obviously do well in a purple district, right?
Sure, yeah.
And I told Dave, I said, look, you're not going to win if you don't modify your stance on abortion. And I literally spelled out his abortion plan, or statement, if you will.
Yeah.
Or his stance, I should say.
Yeah.
And I talked to him at great length about that. And I said, this is the compromise. If you're going to represent all of Pennsylvania, this is where you need to be. I'm not telling you where to be personally. I'm personally pro-life, but I vote to keep it as is. And if you go back and look at his stance, I can hear myself talking to him. So
Is that right?
I'm
Wow.
pretty happy about that because I believe that was the final little component to his campaign that put him over the top.
Are there forces within the state Senate that are pushing to bring that 24 weeks down to, let's say, 15 weeks?
You know,
I'm talking about abortion.
Yeah, I would say when I first got elected 8 years ago, there was certainly some push for that. And I think with the Dobbs decision, I think with some of the political ramifications that have played out because of that, that has certainly tempered a lot of people's opinion on this. And I have seen a move amongst a lot of the legislature to kind of move to the position that I've had right along. Just leave it alone.
Yeah.
Leave it where it's at.
And again, you have a Democrat in the governor's seat. You have Democrats that run the House. No legislation is going anywhere anyway.
Right.
So let's figure out what else we can do.
Let's move on to what's affecting people's everyday lives, and that's the economy in our schools, and plowing the streets.
Senator Dan Laughlin, our senator for Erie County, is in studio here, and let's continue on. Let's get away from the actual politics of it all and go to the policy of it. Where's Harrisburg at? I mean,
you want me to get the map out?
Right, there you go. How long do you have it down to? How many minutes exactly it takes to drive there?
It takes me 5 hours, no matter how fast I drive.
Is that right? Yeah, that makes a sense. No, as far as after this election, did Republicans make any big gains, losses, House, Senate? It's like
literally everything stayed the same.
Did it really?
Yeah. The only incumbent in the whole state to lose was Senator Jimmy Dillon, and we lost John DeSanto's seat. He didn't run again, but we lost that seat. So the Senate stayed exactly the same number of seats. The House stayed exactly the same. Everything's literally the same.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the House margin for the Democrats is like 1 or 2 votes, right?
One seat.
One seat. Amazing. Nothing moved. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here in Erie County on the House side was all the incumbents won. I mean, it was just stagnant.
Pretty status quo.
Yeah. Again, it must be that the voters are happy with what's coming out of Harrisburg.
I don't know. It's weird if you ask them, they're not happy about it. The standard, one of the standard poll questions is, are we on the right track or wrong direction? And it's always, we're doing a terrible job, but they keep electing the same folks. I mean, myself included, I guess.
Right. But I mean, what this is full disclosure. What bothers me about Harrisburg is that as a state as a whole, we're getting our clock cleaned by the likes of Ohio and North Carolina and Tennessee. And I don't know what you do about that without fundamental change.
Well, look, we
and I'm talking the economy.
I totally understand. Look, we are making changes to Pennsylvania's tax laws that are at least starting to make it more attractive to business. And when I took office, one of the things that I ran on, I told people, I said, if you were a multinational corporation and you were looking to onshore virtually anything into the United States, Pennsylvania would probably be almost dead last on your list, unless you needed natural gas or water, right?
Right.
And we've made pretty good strides to start to lower our corporate net income tax rate. And some red tape type regulations. It was kind of funny. I got attacked for those votes during the campaign, which is fine. But I would suspect that Jim would have voted for those too anyway.
Right. Yeah.
That's just part of the game. But we're making, we are making significant strides to try and make Pennsylvania a more business-friendly environment. Because quite frankly, you can't be pro-worker if you're not pro-business, because they have to have a place to go to work. Yeah. And that's where it starts, in my opinion.
Some of the issues that we're dealing with are we don't have big money to invest when a site selector might be looking at us. Again, there's some money. We have the governor's action team to protect jobs.
Yeah, well, we actually significantly changed that in this last budget cycle.
Okay.
We put $500 million into our basically what we're calling our sites program.
Right, PA sites.
Yeah, so that is a fairly significant investment to try and attract business to Pennsylvania, and I believe it's starting to pay off. Whether it'll pay off, for Erie County, well, I'm not sure yet, but we're certainly having some of those conversations.
We spent a lot of money on basic ed. We spend a lot of money on higher ed. Again, but half the time we're a net exporter of those knowledge workers. They're not staying here.
Well, that's because we need to have the jobs here. That's the bottom line, and that makes everything go around, and especially in a region like our district here in Erie County. We've lost a lot of manufacturing jobs over the last 50 years, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we're going to be able to bring manufacturing back to what it once was, but we can certainly make our region attractive to businesses of all kinds to come here. There's data centers that need water for cooling. They need a lot of inexpensive energy to run those. And Pennsylvania is energy rich. We could certainly be making plays in some of these newer areas, areas, if you will.
Do you think the state can provide some pressure on local municipalities to kind of chill out a little bit on the permitting process? It takes a long time to, let's say, get a new natural gas electric plant on, and that's what these data centers are looking for. They're looking for gas out of the ground into the turbines and into the data center.
Yeah. Look, we have folks that are anti-energy. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And we don't have really time to talk about climate change today, but we can do that on another show.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I find frustrating is there was a brand new natural gas power plant going to be built in Renovo, PA, and for the folks that don't know Renovo, it's kind of like Waterford almost, right?
Get paid to drive. Start a new career behind the wheel at the EMTA. If you are looking for a high-paying and rewarding career with full benefits and paid training, stop by or apply online today with the EMTA. Plus, EMTA riders can now enjoy free Wi-Fi on new, clean, and environmentally friendly buses to travel all over Erie County. Visit ridethee.com for more information.
Get on board EMTA. Get on board EMTA. Get
Quickfill gasoline is made right here in America. United Refining Company, who operates Quickfill, refines its gasoline from North American crude oil in Warren, Pennsylvania. When you buy United Refining Company gasoline at Quickfill, you keep jobs and businesses in America, and you keep American families strong. You don't need to send your money overseas when you buy gasoline. Buy American-made gasoline at Quickfill. Quickfill, driving America.
What's your big Christmas? You guys do something like traditional for Christmas?
We watch Die Hard.
You do the
classic Christmas movie.
Look at Shaney's T-shirts. He's got the what is that? Nakatomi Plaza, right?
And Christmas until Hans Gruber falls from the Nakatomi Plaza.
I know, right?
Am I right?
100%.
Exactly. So that's the shirt I'm wearing today. We were celebrating Christmas at the office.
Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Ready? You want to take a phone call?
Sure.
All right. Let's grab a phone call. You're live on Talk Erie with Senator Dan Laughlin. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Joel.
There you go.
The folks against the energy are usually pro-weed. Man, what a downer, you know what I mean? Just making light since the snow is so heavy. I know that I, for one, sure wasn't ready. Hopefully, as we move forward, it goes that the holidays bring family and a lot less snow.
I love it. We're looking for that for sure. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Merry Christmas. We'll see you.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. So that's our poet laureate there, Senator. So you guys watch Die Hard. That sounds like a fun thing.
I have my Christmas sweater on.
Right. Talk to the folks about what you encountered by pulling the plow out. You were busy all last week here locally.
Yeah, I mean, I have stuff that I have to plow personally, just
Sure.
for our apartments and stuff like that. But we also had constituents reaching out to my office that, they had elderly parents and whatnot that they couldn't get to their house to bring them food and medicine and whatnot.
Wow.
I reached out to Derek Sanford, my friend out there at Grace Church, because, I've done some of the volunteer work with R-Erie, and I directed his crew of volunteers to a few people that really needed help, so that was nice. But I went out and I plowed areas of the city, just, I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I did it.
Right.
I plowed a block at a time here and there if I knew somebody had an elderly parent and where they couldn't get to their house, and happy to do it. Happy to do it. But it was kind of an all hands on deck sort of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know if you want to talk about the side streets in the city of Erie, but
They're tough, yeah.
it's pretty rough. I drove over some of them today that are still nearly impassable. And,
well, once they got to being slush, that's another issue if it's too high,
Yeah. So anyway,
it was remarkable to have PennDOT's secretary on the ground that weekend.
Yeah, that was nice to see. I talked to Secretary Carroll while he was up here. I found him to be very responsive. I think he's doing a good job as Secretary of Transportation, and and for what it's worth, it was nice that the governor jumped in and did his disaster declaration, which will help with some of the funding and different things, and got some of the resources up here that were much needed.
Do you get a sense, again, that now you're starting your third go-around, and second, this is your, this is your third governor, right? I mean, because you started under...
No, it was 6 years of Wolf, and then
6 years of Wolf,
yeah.
That's right. Second governor then. I mean, he seems to be more interested in Erie.
Yeah, I would say for sure, right?
Yeah.
And, he is, I don't know if he's as pro-Criz as I am, but he's certainly, expressed support for the program. We made some changes that both he and the Secretary of DCED asked for. I think they were positive changes to the program, by the way. And, when we are... anxiously awaiting the actual approval of the application that we already have in.
Now, my understanding is that went in November, right? I don't know if it was little right after.
It went in late October.
Late October,
yeah.
So before the election.
Yeah.
And buddy of mine, I guess Matt Wachter was involved in creating the application and things. Members of that authority, right?
Correct.
Where does it stand right now? So it's under review by DCED, or
correct?
Okay.
And they came back and asked for a few, clarifications on a few different things, and Matt and his team are providing all that. I actually have a conference call with Matt tomorrow to get an update on some of these finer points on where we stand with the application. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to getting to work, and I think. I think it's going to be one of the best things that this region has, had in a long, long time.
Explain the impact or the potential impact of having this, city revitalization and improvement zone, right?
Yeah. It's going to provide up to $15 million annually into this fund that we can use for infrastructure and site development and literally just about anything, as long as it's pro-growth within the city of Erie in that 130-acre footprint. One of the changes we made to the program, or one of the changes that we're going to make to the program, is we are going to make that footprint movable, so to speak, the rolling footprint that you and I have talked about before. I need to introduce legislation to make that happen, but it sounds like the governor's office is on board with that, so it shouldn't be, much of an impediment. We should be able to get it done.
Do they actually lose money at the state level with these crises, or is it?
No, not at least not technically.
Yeah, because it's based on growth.
Yeah, it's what is known as a revenue neutral program because the state continues to get what they get today, And then as we grow our economy locally, yes, they are missing out on that growth. But that's why the Secretary likes that rolling footprint idea that I proposed to him, is that once we get an area fixed up and back in, usable condition, we will put it back on the tax rolls immediately instead of waiting the 30 years for the program to expire.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of a win-win for the state and for our region, and I'm really looking forward to the next few years on that.
I mean, we need to be clear that we have a lot of catching up to do in the city of Erie as far as investment. Everything from infrastructure, roads, to housing, to commercial buildings, and so on.
Oh, yeah. We're last I checked, we were the 5th poorest city in America, and that's not a title that I'm proud of, and I don't think anybody should be. But it brings, it brings a focus where when you ask for help, people should help, right?
Yeah.
It's partly why we got 8 federal opportunity zones a few years back. Those are overlaid with the CRIZ is obviously going to help our economy locally as well. Look, I'm an optimist, Joel. I think in the coming years, maybe a decade from now, you're not going to recognize the city of Erie anymore.
Wow.
It's going to really be on the uptick.
It's funny, we talked to Senator Cory Booker from New Jersey during the campaign, right? He was representing Kamala Harris. And I talked about the opportunity zones, and he was like, hallelujah. I mean, like, they know the Erie story in Washington. And so you put this CRIZ from Harrisburg, the Washington opportunity zones, and we could really turn a tide that, 60 years, as long as we both have been alive, we've been in decline. We're finally turning that around.
I think we're finally turning the corner for sure. And I'll say this to you. When we went down to Washington, I took a little local posse with me, so to speak. That was like 6 years ago, I think, for that Opportunity Zone Summit. We got 8 opportunity zones for our region. I think that's the most of any Senate district, by the way. And that was due in part to Matt Wachter, which is why I put him on the CRIZ Authority, because he's a pretty sharp cookie and that stuff.
Yeah.
But when I was down there, I met Scott Turner, who was part of the Opportunity Zones at the time.
Yeah.
And this is a little inside baseball here. I wrote on the back of my business card, my Senate business card, right? I said, Scott, I represent the poorest zip code in America. I need your help. And he came to Erie. I don't know if you guys remember this.
I do remember that, yeah.
Well, he has now been appointed, or one of the nominees at least, to run HUD. So I already have a relationship with Scott. So I think that's going to be good for Erie too.
There's no doubt.
So I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. I really am.
That's pretty remarkable. What are all other legislative priorities? You had a release out on Friday about these safe spaces. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it's called Safe Harbor legislation, and this was a bill that was spawned from one of our policy committee hearings last year, and it's a thing that I didn't even realize was a thing until we held this hearing. And there are teenagers that are sex trafficked, and they wind up getting involved, with law enforcement, obviously for prostitution and drugs and things like that. And the real crime in that is that they're still a child, and they're being taken advantage of by bad people. And this legislation would treat them as the victim of the crime that they are, instead of as a prostitute or a drug mule or whatever. And it would basically take these kids, and instead of putting them through our legal system,
like the juvie hall,
instead of doing that to them, it would put them into a program that would help them and get them out of this horrible situation that they are in. So really hoping to get that piece of legislation done this session. I think it's just vitally important. And I mean, if you have relatives that are of their teen years, whether it's your son or daughter or your nephew or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Picture them in a situation like that, and then having law enforcement put them through the legal system instead of into
protective
into
custody.
a protective environment where they should be, right?
Wow.
So really excited about that piece of legislation. Still going to work on Sunday hunting.
I was going to say, I just wrote down Sunday hunting. You're getting pushback from what, the center of the state or what?
Honestly, we almost got it done this past session. Yeah. The Farm Bureau was obviously, or maybe not obviously, but they were opposed to it for a long time, and they're on board finally. That was kind of the last real opposition to it. So I got high hopes for that for this year.
On my Twitter feed, on my X feed, there's an ad, like every fifth article is from Pennsylvania Game Commission because they are so desperate to have the herd culled. Yeah. I mean, there's too many deer.
Well, and quite frankly, I guess, I always say we, it's more of my office, right? Have reached out to the Game Commission to try and extend our local deer season in Erie County because of the snow that we had. Oh, sure. The storm that we had. A lot of people couldn't get out. A lot of people literally couldn't get out. Right?
I was going to say, can you even park at the game lands these days,
So we're trying to at least get like one extra Saturday for folks to get out there, and we'll see if it plays out, but we're at least trying to do that for
Is
our
there
local
something
sportsmen.
about antlerless, like that's not long enough, that we have a long antlered
No, they
season?
changed that. It's concurrent now.
It is concurrent now, okay.
Yeah, they changed that a while ago.
There's a lot of deer hits around here, right?
Yeah.
And so you talk to the claims adjusters and things, and they're saying, literally, this fellow's like, we used to get like one or two a week during the off season. Now we're getting like 10 a week during the off season. There's so many deer hits.
There's a lot of deer. No, there's a lot, and we've lost a lot of hunters. Total number of hunters. So we need to, we need to be mindful of, that the herd needs maintained in a proper size, and we're taking steps to try and make that happen.
You haven't talked about this in a while, but recreational marijuana, where's that legislation stand?
We're going to reintroduce it. I would say this to you: if you put it on a vote to the general population, it would pass overwhelmingly. Mm-hmm. And I think where we're at with it now. It's been talked about openly enough and long enough, and other states have done it, and the sky doesn't fall. We already have a medical program where you can get a medical card and buy pretty much all the cannabis you want, right? I think we're just about there. I really do.
So I'll push back on this and say, since we do have a pretty robust medical system, what's the need for the recreational? Anybody who, has a sore tooth can get a medical marijuana card.
That's true, Joel, and I've pointed that out to folks as well. Yeah. I think the difference is
because there's a lot of weed out there.
Oh,
I mean, we smell it. Downtown.
Look, I think anybody that is honest with themselves knows that anybody in Pennsylvania that wants to smoke cannabis already is, right? They're using it in some form.
Yeah.
I think the difference is in how you write the legislation, who can participate in selling it, because it's fairly regulated in a very, very tight market right now. Yeah. And just from a business and tax standpoint, legalizing it the rest of the way is the proper way to go. Okay. It's good for the free economy. It'll be good for our tax base. Those are the underlying reasons.
There is some worry that it's just going to be big corporate marijuana.
Well, that's what it is now.
Yeah,
and that's why if we pass the bill that Senator Street and I have been working on, it will open it up to a lot more mom and pop type entrepreneurs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is there any Harrisburg solutions to the EMT crisis, the emergency management crisis? I mean, we're dealing with that in Erie County. You have a high-profile conversation here.
Well, look, across the state, we have lost significant numbers of volunteer firefighters. Significant, there
It's
were
like 10%
there were like
of what it was.
yeah, there were like 500,000 or 600,000 20 years ago. We're down to like 30,000 now. It's not enough to run the systems. So some of these areas are having kind of a hybrid model where they have a few paid people during the day, volunteers staffing it at night. There's no easy answer to this. I mean, there really isn't, because almost none of these rural communities can afford to just have a fully paid fire and EMS staff, right? Yeah. I mean, even if you look at the city of Erie, their budget just for the fire department is roughly, I think it's $40 million, isn't it? It's over a third of the entire city budget, and even that's not really sustainable. I mean, if when you look at the city, they've been selling off parts to try and make ends meet, and it's the musical chairs is about to stop. So it's not there's no easy answer. I've proposed legislation a while back that would allow I don't know how to say this accurately, folks that are serving time in prison that have basically been rehabilitated, and obviously there are certain crimes that you would not be, we don't want any child sex offenders out there,
but a non-violent offender.
But a non-violent type offender to help staff some of these areas, it would kind of it would give those folks something to put on a resume too. That's good, good community stuff when they actually are fully released from prison. But it was met with a lot of opposition, as you might expect, even from some of the EMS folks. Felt like, well, no, we don't want those guys. I'm like, you don't have any staff. I mean,
right.
So it was at least an attempt at a creative solution. Didn't really get any traction, but I'm starting to see there are other states that are starting to do at least some version of that too. So
trying to engage. Again, it's all about engaging people that are on the sidelines, whether they're in reentry or they're just working gig economy or something like that. I've just got a minute with Senator Dan Laughlin. I want to ask you, what was kind of one of the most notable things that a voter said back to you about your service as you knocked on the doors?
I'm trying to think here, Joel. There's not really one that really stands out this cycle for whatever reason. I think what was nice was a note that I got after the election from a lady that she sent me a note, and she said she's like 85 years old, lifelong liberal, have never ever voted for Republican, and I broke her streak. she was almost a little bit mad
that she found one.
Yeah. So I'd say of all the election stuff, that was the one that made me smile the most. It was like, well, you didn't go to your grave with the perfect voting record, as she called it. So.
Oh my gosh.
So that was kind of heartwarming, I guess.
Well, again, you represent all the people. You have to when you're in that kind of position.
I try really hard to do that, Joel. I really do.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, the Senator Dan Laughlin, of the 49th District. Again, you take the oath again, what, December or January 1st, right? Or January 2nd?
I think it's January 7th this year.
Oh, the 7th, okay.
It's the first Tuesday of the new year.
Gotcha.
It's,
so that'll be
1 year it was
25.
One year it was the first. It
was it right on New Year's? Yeah.
Yeah.
So through 2029. Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And look, I think it's going to be an exciting 4 years. I think we have a lot to look forward to.
Fantastic. Appreciate it, sir.
You've been listening to The Joel Natale Show, Erie, Pennsylvania's daily podcast from TalkErie.com. Subscribe to our show on your favorite podcatcher and get involved by emailing joel@TalkErie.com.